All right. Greetings and welcome back once again. This is Luna stopping by. Pray everybody is doing well. Those who are new and those who are returning, welcome to the channel where we have a lot of conversations about a lot of things, mostly relationships, spirituality, what's going on, current events, how they relate to our reality. I'll wait a little bit for people to come in. And then I'm going to talk about this TikTok challenge that I call it TikToxic. This TikToxic challenge that's going around by we covered one the other day, which was rather disturbing. This one is not as much profanity and physical abuse. But I also think it's interesting to note that this one was same a melanated mother, but it was her son who was doing it as opposed to the daughter, and the son got a very different response. And there's so many different variables that determine what type of response the son is getting, and that's maybe a conversation that we could continue to have because I saw a notable difference. So I'm going to play it in a little bit because we usually play it and then we play it again. But welcome to those who have just joined us. This is the second one that I've seen. Some similarities and a lot of differences, right? So like, subscribe and share the video and all that other good, lovely stuff. So let's go. There's some other stuff on my mind right now. Maybe we'll talk about it after this TikTok. So let me get the thing that's in the subject line. Let's get this rolling. And for some reason, once I play on the phone, I can't stop it midway. So I'm just going to let it play out. It's not that long, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
So this company reached out to us about a partnership and wanted me and Mama to tell us a little bit about ourselves. So I'm going to start by saying, hey, I'm Trey Welch, Boone, Mississippi, 28 years old.
Hey, I'm Lorinda. I'm his mother. I'm in the 50 Club. That's all you need to know.
Growing up day and night, Mom worked very hard being a prostitute. And
Bag the heck up. Wait a minute. What did you say?
you was working being a prostitute.
Where the carnation did you get that from?
I mean, that's what you did. You was always gone at nighttime, so I figured you was being a prostitute.
Not a prostitute. I was working.
Being a prostitute.
No, I was never a prostitute. I don't know where the heck you got that from. I worked day and night to support you. Paying your high doctor bill, paying your thrill. Cut that out. It ain't gonna be no segment or nothing, because this ain't going down on me. I was never a prostitute. Because when I wasn't working, I had you in church.
I mean, I remember going to church. I remember. So this company reached out to us about a partnership and wanted me and Mom to tell us a little bit about ourselves. So I'm gonna start by saying, hey, I'm Trey Welch, Boone, Mississippi, 28 years old.
Hey, I'm Lorinda. I'm his mother.
I don't know why
I'm in the 50 Club. That's all you need to know.
See here.
Growing up day and night, Mom worked very hard being a prostitute. And
the video seems to be breaking up on my end. Let me try to play it again.
Hiccup. Wait a minute. What did you say?
You was working being a prostitute.
Where the carnation did you get that from?
I mean, that's what you did. You was always gone at nighttime, so I figured you was being a prostitute.
Not a prostitute. I was working.
Being a prostitute.
No, I was never a prostitute. I don't know where the heck you got that from. I worked day and night to support you. Paying your high doctor bill, paying your thrill. Cut that out. It ain't gonna be no segment or nothing, because this ain't going down on me. I was never a prostitute. Because when I wasn't working, I had you in church.
I mean, I remember going to church. I remember being at church early.
You better remember some more things than a prostitute.
But you was always, dog it. What was that for?
I used this on you and I'm gonna use it now. You about to get some wings. Now you finna fly up out of here.
Mama.
You about to fly high.
I can't help that you was in the street.
I was not in the street. Do you understand that? Who told you that?
I mean, you was always gone at nighttime. So I
work. We finna turn this face up. Cut that off. It's over.
So what about the partnership?
There ain't a partnership. You ain't gonna call me prostitute.
What you washing your hands for?
I done had the COVID and I'm clover now.
Hopefully it wasn't breaking up on your end. For some reason, it was breaking up on my end. So hopefully it came through. It's breaking up on my end. Peace, everybody. Welcome to the conversation. Yeah, this is disrespect. This is disrespect on some high levels, deep mind. I'm like, you know, who comes up with these type of challenges? Where the mind of the young adults who engage in these type of challenges? It looks staged, but I went over to his channel on TikTok, and I have another video that's the follow up to this one, and based on what I'm seeing, there may be some validity to the way in which his mother reacted, that she didn't know that it was staged, right? Teresa, it was clear? It was clear on your end? That's good. Okay, because on my end, it was stopping a little bit. But again, there's so many things that's going on. But one of the things I wanted to note is that, yes, there was a different temperament. This mother is attesting to going to church. So she didn't go off. She didn't start cursing in the same way that the first woman did, but she did get violent. She didn't bust his lip, but she did try to hit him with a fly swatter. I don't know what that was going to do. And she just had a different way in which she dealt with it, but both were hurt. You know, sometimes people are hurt. Sometimes people say things and we're hurt, but depending on the type of person we are, the type of background, what's in us, you're going to see that hurt manifest differently. Both of these women had an issue with being called a prostitute, especially by the children who they sacrificed to take care of, right? And so it's, again, when we compare and contrast, not just the fact that the children, they wild doing this stuff, and I'm never in a million years, I'm a prank or no prank, but you can just basically see based on what is in the person, what comes out of the person. So there's a follow-up. Yeah, the mother was definitely hurt. I think that part was all the way real. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. Sorry about all the things. She couldn't believe what she was hearing coming from her son, right? So now this is the follow-up video. That's why I said I went over to the TikTok and I saw him following up on this. Sometimes you don't see the follow-up to the prank. So let me go to the follow-up video to hear the mother explain a little bit why she didn't think that was funny.
So I done got home from work. Mama out here mowing the yard. She ain't looked at me. She ain't said nothing to me. She ain't even waved at me. I feel like she's still mad at me. Just look at her. Look at her. Just mowing all the mad and aggressive and stuff. We finna settle this. I'm tired of this mess. She finna talk to me. Mama! Hey! Hold on, Mama. I ran over my toes. Look, let me say something to you.
What?
Let me talk to you. Look, I just want to say I'm sorry about yesterday for calling you a prostitute. And I didn't mean it. It was just a prank. And I just want to apologize. I'm sorry, Mama.
Okay. But I'm going to tell you, I was really mad. I like to lost my religions on you.
Your religion? Lord have mercy.
Don't ever do that again. That's a very disrespectful word to me.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Don't ever. I'm just telling you.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mama.
I worked hard for you, and I'm glad you know that. You know I did.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
When I wasn't at your game, I had somebody to take care of you. Because you know why?
Why?
Because I had to work.
So
I didn't have no man.
I
had you and decided to raise you. I closed that chapter, that book. When me and your daddy didn't work out. I put that on the shelf.
Well, Lord have mercy.
I want you to understand what I went through for you.
Okay, Mama, I'm sorry.
Okay.
All right. Can we shake on it? Can we shake? Yeah.
I taught you to show love. Bring it on in.
All right, cuz. Appreciate it, cuz.
Yeah. All right, cuz.
All right.
Never do that again.
Hey, don't pop my little chest like that.
See that what I'm saying?
Man, hold on.
If I could take that boot off.
Hold on, man. Hey. Look, I'm sorry.
There you go.
I'm sorry.
Told you to cut that out.
I'm all right. I'm done messing with you. Here, I'll let you.
Hurry up, cause you gonna mow today, buddy.
I ain't finna mow.
Cause I'm tired. I ain't fully well yet.
Where you going? You gotta finish.
No, go down there and get that ride no more. It ain't gonna hurt you. I got 2 masks. I'll put that mask on you.
Mama, that mask still is not gonna protect my asthma.
You'll be all right. I believe you were lying and them doctors too.
What you mean? What were they lying about?
Oh, he can't yard work. He ain't gonna be able to do. They lying.
So the doctors are lying now.
No, they lying. You can mow.
Mama, my asthma. You know I get out of breath and stuff.
You know what? I bring your pump out there. I bring it out there to you.
Hold on, Mama. Finish my yard. I'm gonna pay you $2.
$2? You look like $2.
Mama, what the chicken?
Did she tell him she was going to bring him the pump? I don't know why it's chopping up on my side. Hopefully you guys were able to see that. And so I don't think this was a prank. I mean, I don't think it was staged in the sense that we see a lot of pranks staged. This woman, as well as the other woman, none of their hurts lessened. It was really just their reaction to where you can feel or empathize with one versus the other. And sometimes the way we react determines whether we're gonna get empathy from someone or we're gonna get blame, right? But for me, at the core of this crazy challenge, along with them crates that people are walking up and down on, like you ain't got no business up top the crate talking about you doing the crate challenge. The people are losing their minds. But at the core of this, it's interesting to see the women's reaction at the words or the thoughts of their children to say that they were selling themselves, right? They were selling themselves for money, right? Who came up with this? And how come I'm just seeing, maybe there are other people, if you've seen other people, other children do this, let me put the link below, because who came up with this and what really is the purpose? Like, what are you, like, how you violate your parents like that or your mother like that and think it's gonna go well? I don't know. Again, there's a lot of toxicity there. Like she said, he almost let her lose her religion because she just couldn't believe what she was hearing. So we live in a culture today where men call women hoes and women call women hoes and men call women bees and women call women bees. And the whole sanctity of a pure or pristine woman or a chaste woman or a woman that has some type of something about her, a lot of that is gone, right? But these are women that's from a little bit of an older time, 50s and 60s, and they don't think it's funny. But in today's space and time, they call themselves all type of names and they think it's funny, right? So we're actually looking even at the way you perceive womanhood, one generation to the next. Let me know if I'm breaking up. So that was the follow-up on this TikToxic prank. In addition to this crate challenge, I saw some other videos. You can do other things with those crates. Put some books in those crates. Put your children's toys in those. Organize your garage with the crates. You can do planting with the crates. You fill it with dirt. The holes are going to allow the water to drain. And you can do container gardening with the crates. There are many other things you can do with the crate. I saw someone fall off like the 5th crate, the one right in the middle, and they look like they was falling right on their neck. I don't know what type of madness, what type of lean, what type of scissor the people are drinking, but something is definitely wrong. Like, bruh, if you are 250 to 275 pounds on the 8th crate in the middle, what you think was going to happen? What do you think was going to happen? I think the people have been inside too long. They have not had enough oxygen to the brain for too long. This may be a result of, never taking your mask off and not having enough oxygen to fund the brain. Share that life. What's going on? You know what I mean? There's a lot of madness going on that you really have to look at and say, that's not cool. Because even though he said he did it for a prank, and I've seen people do some retarded pranks, and it seems that we, the people, like consuming these type of things, but it does something to a relationship when the person always has to be on guard against you because they think that you are pranking or you're running a joke or you're not being serious. So all while you're trying to get likes and shares on social media, you can be eroding the fiber of the relationship. Like, look at the way his mother's like, yo, don't do that again. You know what I mean? You really made me feel some type of way coming at me like that. And if he thinks that's just going to go away because you yell cut, or the other girl think it's just going to go away because, you know, it's over, those type of things stay with people. I'll give you an example. You watch a movie, think back to when you were young. What movie stayed with you even though you knew it wasn't real? What trauma or traumatic thing happened in a movie? Name a movie that something traumatic happened and you were little and you watched it. And even though it was not real, quote unquote, you still carry that with you. Like when I was young, I didn't like scary movies. I didn't like the Gremlins. I thought them joints was real. They were scary. When you look back now, you're like, I was scared of the Gremlins. The Gremlins look mad scary. I didn't like all of the stuff that was coming out because I never liked that type of suspense madness. It didn't make sense to me. Shaka Zulu was a traumatizing movie. The part with like the witch doctor, I mean, like, yo, that was scary for me. So I could think of a lot of movies that, quote, weren't real that still stayed with me until adulthood. How much so a relationship that we may have with one another, that we play these type of, quote, games or jokes. It doesn't just go away that easy. Right? It was insensitive. Right? He's triggering her. Right? But he was triggering her for a reaction. That's what they did it for. They wanted to get a reaction out of their parents. And they thought it was funny. But how could you come and say your mother was a prostitute? Like, where are we doing this at? Where are we doing this at? And younger children are like, oh, yeah, I'm going to. And they have it under the pretense of they're getting their upward mobility. So look at it from the mother's perspective. This mother sacrificed in whatever way she could. And both of them are like, to make sure that you can eat. The other woman said it in not so nice a way. This one tried to, fluff it up. They made sure that you could stay alive. This guy, I think he's like 28. For you to come to the point where you can turn around and say to that person, for all your sacrifice, for everything that you did, I thought you was hoeing. It's like, what? I mean, what? That's where we at now. That is where we are. That is where we are. So there's just it's a lot of craziness happening, as we see in the so-called conscious community. It is crazy. I have been between the math homework and following up on what's going on. I'm like, it's too much. But one of the India B, what's going on? Yeah, his mother was definitely nice compared to the other lady. What was I gonna say? One of the things that's happening in the conscious, so-called conscious, subconscious community, like I keep saying, as we look at what's unfolding and major bloggers are picking it up, the issue with the way in which, and it happens with any story, when we pick up a story in the middle, and the person has a bigger platform, there's a chance that you can misrepresent the players. There's a chance that you can misrepresent the narrative because of where you come in the story. Right. And so we just need to keep that in mind as the story is going forward. There's many people talking about it because it's a hot topic. But there's so many moving pieces that if we don't learn, all the thing that's going to happen is this scenario, different players, same energy, they're going to go into another place. If you look at all of the movements, I've studied a little bit about the movements. They didn't start from scratch. They come from other people's who the movement may have died down, they may have faded out, the leader might have been killed, and you have all of these people who had all of these dreams. I'm going to play it again for you, John. You had all of these people and you had all of these dreams, and they didn't actualize it. So because we know energy is not destroyed. So this energy from the movements before looks for a place to go, looks for a place to manifest. It may change a logo. It may change a color scheme. It may change a leader, but a lot of those people move into another movement. And I've said this before based on the research, like Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey was not able to just, boom, come to America and galvanize thousands and hundreds of thousands of people. Marcus Garvey came on the back of a movement that already was established. And it was a sort of a proto-reparations type movement with, I forgot the name of the actual organization, but the lead woman, there was two people, and one of the lead persons was a woman named Callie House. And they were trying to get, it was her and another man. And they were going around forming organizations trying to appeal to the U.S. government for reparations. I have the book at the house, but her name is Callie House. I think the name of the book is Callie House too, right? So you had all of these people, they were paying for their own burial. They weren't waiting for the government to do it. They were petitioning because they were literal ex-slaves. They weren't the children of ex-slaves. They wasn't the grandchildren of ex-slaves. They wasn't the great-grandchildren. These were the people who in their formative years was born in slavery, and then slavery was abolished. And now in the late 1800s, early 1900s, because this is around the time of the whole Marcus Garvey conversation, they are going around petitioning the U.S. government, suing certain business owners because they wanted, what did they call it? They didn't call it reparations at the time. They wanted pensions. Right? And we could talk about that at another time. So they wanted pensions. And what happened was, the same thing they did to Marcus Garvey later is the same thing they did to Callie House. They got her on some fraud charges, and the other guy who was with her, they tried to get him on charges. And so when they picked off the leaders of those organizations, there was a lot of this energy that was waiting to be harnessed to put in a new direction. So they were trying to get the score even here. So when Marcus Garvey comes, he's like, forget it. You know what I mean? Back to Africa. And the people are like, yeah, back to Africa. That sounds good. And so he's already galvanizing the people and the networks that already existed. It's kind of like what the European did on the continent. They didn't make the sub-Saharan trade routes. They didn't create these things. They already existed. What they did was they utilized it and they exploited what was already there. Right. So that framework was already laid. So it is with Marcus Garvey. And then after Marcus Garvey, he gets, ran out of the country and they deport him and he goes and dies of a heartache. And then here comes Elijah Muhammad. Elijah Muhammad was a Garveyite. So when you kind of look at the way in which kingdoms rise and kingdoms fall kind of way, Quincy, what's going on? Kingdoms rise and kingdoms fall is the kind of best way I could put it. When kingdom rise and kingdom fall, or movements rise and movements fall, or consciousness rise and consciousness fall, those people who are like, man, I thought Umar was it. Man, I thought Polite was it. Man, I thought such and such was it. Now they're looking oftentimes for someone else to be it. And they just move that energy and move that information and move that whatever it is over into another thing. And that's kind of what we are watching right now, is the rise and fall of a time period where spitting knowledge and saying you conscious and moving the people intellectually was where it was at. Before, it was on the streets is where it was at. The person who could, move the most product, or the person who was the baddest XYZ, then they would get accolades. In this space is the person who can retain and reiterate and disseminate the knowledge. The person who can do that the best is the one who gets the accolades. They're the one who gets to the top of the totem pole. But eventually, like all things that man is in control of, it begins to break apart. And that's kind of what we're witnessing. And people are coming around like, what in the world is happening here? Like and subscribe to the video. You know what I mean? People are like, what in the world is happening here? But it's been a long time coming because of the framework. It's the same thing with the Black church. To a certain degree, there was a time when pastor could do no wrong. And then what happens? You get a mass exodus from the Black church, so-called Black church. Why? Because people realized and figured out somebody was playing games, somebody was hustling, somebody not giving the information the way they need to. They're not being fed, right? They're not being fed sufficiently so that they can grow spiritually. So the people begin to look for other options. Some people is going back into African spirituality. Some people is going to Islam for their structure. Some people are becoming Hebrews. You have a great disbursement of people looking for something that consciousness wasn't able to provide, right? Yes, Yummy Cottage, Yummy. Speaking of which, we're going to play the video again, the TikToks it, but shout out to Queen T. Thank you for always sharing the information. I got a new video. I know y'all probably tired of the curry video. I'm going to come back and show you how we do the curry. You don't know? But I had a little commercial break, and then we're going to come back and run that video again. All right, so now we're going to make some Yummy Cottage pancake and waffle mix. I scooped about 1.5 cups of mixture, and this is your plant-based milk with your oil allowance in there. And I like to put a little bit as I go here. And then you don't want it too runny because you don't want your waffles all over the place, but you don't want it too thick. And we're going to mix it around. And ta-ta, look at that. That quick and easy. We have our waffle batter. Okay, let's bust out our waffle iron. All right, waffle time. So pour your waffle batter, your yummy waffle batter, all over the waffle maker that you may have. And then just go ahead and close the lid. Oops, there we are. It says it is ready. Let's take a look at our yummy waffles. Okay. Blah down. Blah down. Gotta be careful when you're taking it out. Flip it over. Tap, 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 tap. If you want it a little more golden, just leave it in a little bit longer. All right. Thank you for tuning in. Waffle mix. We got waffle mix. Go on over to theyummycottage.com. Go down. And here we have it. Vegan fluffy pancake waffles. You just saw us make it. Put it in your cart. Check out and we will send it along the way. It makes the perfect waffle in a jiffy. You understand? And that's what our waffles look like. That's what those pancakes look like. And before you know it, 15 minutes from start to finish, you'll be munching on some fresh homemade waffles. All right, I know I made some of y'all hungry, but it's all good. You know, I think I'm gonna bring back our special syrups. I'm gonna bring back our special syrups. I had to make sure that I stabilized them, but I think I'm gonna bring them back because they'll go great with the waffles. Now, this waffle mix is vegan in nature, plant-based, so it doesn't have any milk or any whey byproducts. It's all natural. So if you would like, go on over to www.theyummycottage.com so you can check it out. But back to the conversation. This is what I do, y'all. The Yummy Cottage. We've been grinding for a good 3.5 years, going 4 years. This is what I do. This is what, I come in and out and talk to you guys, but this is what I do on the ground. So go ahead and support, share the link. And if you have natural products, I'm going to open up to where I'm going to put together a platform where you can come and share and discuss, kind of like, I'll tell you more about it. I'm going to do a prototype for you and I'm going to tell you more about it. So if you know somebody who has natural products, healthy products, and they would like to get on a platform where you can share and do all that nice stuff, just let me know. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in the days and weeks to come. But in the between time, this was TikToxic, okay? I'm just going to only show one. Queen T said, I use almond milk and coconut milk. They're so good. Added a little cinnamon, vanilla to my mix. I made pancake. Yeah, them pancakes are litty. Yeah, I'm going to come back with the syrups. I'm going to come back because I have the bottles and everything. You did hair. If you have a hairline, Queen T, stand by. I'm going to make the joint official. I had pitched the idea to Black Enterprise like back in 2015, right? So I already have everything laid out. Just give me a little bit because I'm reordering a lot of stuff and putting everything in order, but it's going to be official. You already know it's going to be official. So stand by. Shoot me the link or shoot me the email. Actually, put if you have a website, put it in the box below so people can check it out. And we're definitely going to work on like collectively highlighting some things in a very official type of way, streamlined. But definitely those pancakes are litty. And the package is in the mail. John Clark came. He also spoke to Malcolm X multiple times and have helped. There you go. The love of Black people. Let's go ahead and put it up. That's the name of the site. I'm gonna go ahead and check it out as well. Concerning helping Black people. Let me just go there. John, you're probably gonna have to rewind because it's like stuttering on my side. The video is, so I don't want to go through all of that again. But concerning helping Black people, it's just interesting. A lot of us come and see the conditions of our people, the conditions of our family, and we want to help. If you have a heart, if you're a president, you have a heart, you're gonna want to be like, well, what's wrong with the people? I want to help. And there's a lot of people who have come through time and said, hey, I want to help. in so many different ways, in so many different capacities. This is why I don't agree with a lot of the way in which present day, a lot of even YouTubers on social media are coming at the conversation, because they're not coming at it in a holistically, historically accurate kind of way. And even some of the women of YouTube are not coming at it like, what have black men did? There has been many attempts. Every generation there's an attempt. So for us to pretend as though that over time there hasn't been something that's called love of the people. I'm sorry, Quincy. Love of the people. My apologies. Love of the people. For us to pretend as though over time each generation didn't have a thought that they pursued, or many thoughts for the advancement of the people, is disingenuous. Give thanks truthfully. You know what I mean? It's disingenuous for me. This is why some of the stuff I can't rock with, because we're looking at it only as, okay, this is what I'm seeing now. There's so much that has been done. There's so much that has been attempted, and it's not an excuse. It's the reality of understanding. Before you can help someone truly, you have to understand what's the history. When you go to the doctor, before the doctor says, oh, I want to help you, unless it's an extreme emergency situation where they have to first deal with stopping the bleeding or dealing with the bullet, if you come to them for a consultation, they're going to ask about your history. Because before they can help you, they have to do a historical background of your medical history to see what is what and what is what. So for when people come in today's space and time and be like, who's helping black people, so-called black people, why are you not helping? If you're not honestly looking at the narrative holistically and historically, you're doing it a disservice, because you're sending people out on these kamikaze missions as if something has changed from 100 years ago to now, to where what you're attempting is not going to be thwarted. This is why on one of those web pages, I said, name me a time in history that one of these movements was successful. A fool will continue to do the same thing over and over again and think you're going to get a different result. What time in history, what time in history did we see long-reaching attempts to reach a goal and you stay there? Every time you reach a goal or you set a goal, because of the adversary environment in which we the people find ourselves, they're going to come back 10 times harder to make sure that if you took one step forward, you're going to take 10 steps back. And if we're not honest about the fact that over long periods of time, there are other things psychologically that set in, that people say, you know what, why even try? I'm not saying that it's an excuse for people to be disparaged and to be, to not have any value systems. I'm saying as a whole, when you say you're going to come so-called help black people, okay, in what, to do what, right? And historically, how has this worked out? Historically, if you go and build something, chances are the person who built it is not doing what they're supposed to do. They're going to take it down. They're going to take it back. Historically, you're going to try to do Black Wall Street. Historically, they're going to come try and make sure it's null and void. Historically, if you try to build up based on religion, you're going to have some despotic leader that's just going to come in and mash up the whole thing the same way it went up. Historically, you're going to petition the government. They're going to make sure they have some backdoor policies to make sure everything they gave you on the front end, they took on the back end. Tell me if I'm bugging or if I'm making up or if this is not historically accurate. And if it is, then there takes a little stepping back to see, okay, what is going on here? Like I said, that proto reparations movement were the actual people. And the government was like, nah, bro, we ain't giving you spit. Okay, this is the actual people. They can actually name their masters. They can actually tell you where they were enslaved at, and they still didn't give them no money. There's something else going on here. I think that's really my point. And so when we have, even in this space where everybody like, I got the brightest idea, I got the brightest idea, I got the brightest idea, and then it just gets worse and worse and worse. They're like, oh, okay, civil rights, no worry, I got something for you. Here comes the 70s. Then here comes the 80s, war on drugs. Here comes the 70s, black exploitation. Then you see the degeneration of the people, and you're like, wait a minute. You know what I mean? And then here comes the pimps and the hoes. Right after you made some gains and advances, boom, back 5-10 steps. I remember Still no systems. That's why we need these spiritual leaders could assist with financial education. Yeah, because it's easier to sell a spirituality than it is to sell the practicality of how you advance in this space, right? Because spirituality, it can be interpreted however you want it to be interpreted, but actual making progression and gains, and if they are in some of these organizations, they have somebody at the head, and it's a kind of a pyramid scheme that the people who are already lacking are pouring in, and the person at the top is benefiting, and everybody else is the sacrifice. I just say all that to say that, some of what people are calling help, we're going to see who's who in a minute, because some of the people who was loud and proud, some of the people who was like, even in this manosphere, it's a burning building. The people are leading people into a place that's going to end in what we're seeing now happening in the conscious community. That's where it's going to end. That's why I keep saying, where you going? 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 Right? Because people have a doctrine, they espouse it, but when the chips start to fall, all of a sudden everybody got hands off. It wasn't me. Everybody's shaggy. I thought I saw you on the video. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. Historically accurate for real. If we check it, demons do the same thing. Give something just to take it back on the back end. I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot. There's a lot. This history is deep. There's no concessions, really. When I took the history class over again, that was just given without a real fight in this country, specifically in this country, right? It come with a lot of struggle. And when there's a concession given, trust and believe, there's something on the back end that's going to come to take it away, and even more. I'm talking about as a collective, because there's people who be like, individually, yeah. Individually, few people will be able to go through and do their thing. But as a collective, and then one has to ask, well, what is the issue with progression as a collective? What's the problem? It wasn't me. What is the problem with progression as a collective? There's one of the Dr. D'Angelo, she used to come on Philippe Matthew all the time. When she taught, she blew up now in recent times, but she wrote a book back then talking about white fragility. If we look at the history that we can't get away from in this country, that is one of the problems of people keep comparing or falsely doing so to really understand why the melanated person in this country is very different in the mind of the dominant society. They're very different than the Indian, very different than the Korean, very different from the Asian, very different from many other people because of the nature of what was done. Yeah, you dropped a bomb on Hiroshima, or, you had a little fight over there in Pearl Harbor, or you participate in X, Y, and Z, but the extent and the depth of what was done to melanated bodies here on this mainland continent, it has people really afraid of if and when the tables turn. I keep saying this, Thomas Jefferson spoke to this. There was a real concern. Maybe many people wasn't privy to their conversations over tea and crumpets, but this is a real and present concern, the Negro dilemma. The social media climate allows for bastardization of movements to be sped up, and it makes the people hopeless. And then comes, it's kind of a programming, and it's sad because a lot of people are swept away with emotionalism, because there's a real problem that we're tying a perceived solution to, and the people are emotionally invested in it, and therefore they're emotionally invested in these characters and these people. When one starts to say a thing against another, then you get to click up. You get to polarize the people, and then this one is banging on this one because this one is this one's teacher. It's nothing new. Malcolm and Mountain was the same thing. W.E.B. Du Bois and who was his rival again? Who was W.E.B. Du Bois's rival? It's on the tip of my tongue. This is not the first. They wasn't even feeling Marcus Garvey. This whole conversation of all of this stuff is not new. It's something that exists and pre-exists. And one of my, I'll give a theory, is that Black people, so-called, are not a monolith. Not a monolith. People keep saying Black people, Black people, Black people, but they're not a monolith. They weren't. It was a collection of people, various tribes, various customs, various languages, various traditions, various religions, and were forced together which is a trauma bond. This is, to me, just based on my study, because the nature of the relationship between black people, quote unquote, was not, hey, you know, I want to just go over to America on this boat because, you know what I mean, I heard they got better opportunities. It wasn't the indentured servant leaving Europe. It was a traumatic bond that we need each other to survive. But beyond that, people have a problem sticking together because it's a trauma bond. It's not a healthy bond. It's not one that you suggested, or it's not one that you volunteered to participate in. It's like your cellie in jail. You get close to your cellie because you're both in a traumatic situation. You're in jail. So now you got to look out for Celly, and Celly got to look out for you. It may not be the same thing when you go on the street, depending on your thought process and your position as to why you're in jail, right? So the person who you may not on a normal day have gotten down with, you get down with. Like the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So you get down with the people who you normally on a normal day would have been like, nah, I'm good. And if you look at the way the relationships go, a lot of people come together based on something that's pressing. And then when that pressing issue is gone, then it's over. Yo, why y'all keep calling that dude Kitten in Hills? That's funny, man. I don't know why it's that. That name is funny. I mean, I have to give consent. I mean, when it's funny, it's funny. I'm not gonna front. That name is funny. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on over there. Like, again, it's not just people hating. Another one of the issues with saving so-called Black people is the inability to I keep saying this because, you know, to efficiently communicate and resolve things through communications. Relationships based on trauma have a tendency to lapse. Yeah, it's trauma-based relationships. It's trauma-based relationships. And our communication overall is poo-poo-pa-doo-poo. And the infamous words of my niece is poo-poo-pa-doo-poo. When she told me that one day, I was like, what did you say? Poo-poo-pa-doo-poo, right? So the same thing here is the same thing in the islands. How the only thing different is who was the dominant society or the dominant culture, and what are the ways in which they seasoned their slaves. How did they culturally determine the guidelines of interfacing with one another? We have to realize that our interface has been tampered with. Sometimes I go to a few restaurants because I don't like eating outside, but for various reasons, but I will just sit down there and watch when a European, another European, or another culture come in. They're bonding over the food. It didn't have to be a special occasion. Mm-hmm. It didn't have to be somebody's birthday. It's that they just said, hey, Scott, what's going on? You want to meet up for lunch, buddy? And they go and they sit, and I'll be sitting there listening, and they're just talking normally. In our, because of the way things were set up, the dominant society did not break in their social norms to a certain degree. But what are you Negroes? You Negroes had to eat on the run because you got to go back to the field. So you don't really have any time. And if I see you fraternizing, that means that you're wasting time. And that means that you're punished. And the only time you get to be celebrated is if I give you permission and it's a special occasion. This is why you see I put together the video 4th of July where Lewis Hughes is talking about the 4th of July, and then famously Frederick Douglass is talking about the 4th of July. So the way in which melanated people related with food, related with social conversation and exchange is very different. And because that breakdown is there, then we have breakdowns everywhere. Because if you cannot exchange on a very base level, then you're going to have an issue building anything. When you look at the Tower Barrel narrative, what happened? The communication broke down. Not making this stuff up. The communication broke down. You understand? And once the communication breaks down, then the whole breaks down. I had a similar situation happening today where I find it funny that sometimes when people know you from another space, They know you from when you were younger. They know you from when you were still growing in your late teens and your college days. And they want to hold you. They want to pigeonhole you into a space. Your family members, your mate that you met early on, they want to pigeonhole you into a certain space. And as you continue to grow, as you continue to learn, they don't allow for that, because now they're going to have to relate to you based on where you are, not where you were. And when that communication shuts down, there's nothing more to relate with. There's no more space to relate with. Right? And so sometimes we like, yo, that's my homie from day one, da, 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 da. But are they your homie if you're not talking about, what was your favorite icy? If you're not talking about, shorty from the 9th grade, if you're not talking about these things, can you speak about how you're growing in the now? And if you can't, then you have outgrown that person, not in a dirty or nasty way, but in a realistic way that there's nothing more that we can talk about because the other person may not be willing to grow or accept that you have grown. Right? So that's a breakdown in communication. So when you have these people in leadership positions, if it happens on an everyday level, when you have these people in leadership positions and they're not willing to come to the table and humble themselves to say X, Y, and Z, and everybody's telling you what it is instead of really saying, what is it? And the people are like, well, I don't need that. People are very weird. I made the mistake really early on when I looked at what was going on in Ethiopia, and I did the research and talked to people and see what a lot of other people were putting out. I'm like, oh man, I want to help them. But you don't even know what they need help with. You're assuming that that's what they need your help with. So I made a lot of assumptions. Right. And so I remember we bought this expensive water purification system because I'm like, yo, they said the water was terrible. So we got to go with a water, like all the way Western in the mine. Not to say that the water didn't cause me trouble. But when we got to the airport, the the customs was like, yo, what's this? I'm like, yo, it's a water purification system. It's one of them handheld ones, but it was heavy duty. And he was like, why do you have this? I was like, yo, because they said the water was compromised. So, and it's like, yeah, and you're going to pay for that. That's another thing. They make you pay for everything when you're coming in. But my point being, the assumption was you believe everything that other people are saying without verifying for yourself. And then you come giving the person what you think they need as opposed to listening to what it is they need. And it happens so quickly that when we misfire or we have miscommunication, boom, automatically defenses go up and people's receptivity breaks down. This is why I think communication is key, because how do you go down and confound their language? It's over. The language is confounded. They just going to start fighting. What if you go by the biblical narrative, the minute the language was confounded, what happened? The people started fighting. The people started fighting once the languages are confounded. That means it's confusion. It's babble. You're talking, but I'm not understanding what you're saying. And so something similar happened to me today where I'm trying to communicate a thought. And we have to also understand that sometimes, because people feel they know us from another time, they may have this already implicit bias towards you for whatever reason or another, based on their experiences. And we all do it to a certain degree. And because of that, everything that you're saying is going through this sieve, is going through this mesh. And the frustration comes because the person refuses to, it's like your computer didn't update. But now you're trying to give it a new command, like, you know how your phone be like, update your interface, or else you can't download this app. And then you refuse to update the interface, but you're still trying to download the app. And you're mad. What you need is not always a want of others. That's absolute facts too. Queen T says Phil Scott did a really good show on religion today, and he's saying a lot of what you are. Well, hallelujah. He's doing his thing. I've seen his channel grow. Yeah, I've seen his channel grow, African Diaspora. He's doing his thing. He's doing his thing. Right? So, what was I saying? This communication thing, for me, coming from a space where it goes from not giving you clear-cut instructions. Some people get different spaces depending where you're coming from. Where I'm personally coming from, you don't get clear instructions. It's supposed that you understand, especially as a child. I used to be confused as a child. Like, what? They assume that you know what they're talking about, and I'm only going to tell you once, but you didn't tell me sufficiently, so I really don't even understand what you're talking about. You know what I mean? And then the consequence comes because you didn't do it correctly when you weren't given the right instruction to begin with. And this also is a leftover just from humanity, period, but it's compounded because of our traumatic space. That you assume that children are going to know. Sometimes I have to say to my children 2, 3, 4, 5 times, right? But I take the time to sit down and explain to them and try to kind of walk them through so they're not just totally thrown out there. And then I give this unjust punishment for not following what I said when I wasn't even clear on what I said. And then I don't give you permission to ask me. I remember one time I have an aunt, she used to talk really low, right? From Trinidad too. Shout out to Trinidad. She used to talk really low, really quietly. Yeah. And so sometimes when she was talking, I didn't know what she was saying because it's like you got to strain your ears to hear her. So I was young. I used to be like, yeah, okay. This is us pretending that we understand what the other person is saying because we don't want to be disrespectful, but we don't know what they're saying. And so I'm like, oh, okay. So a few minutes go by, 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. And she's looking at me. I'm like, well, why is she looking at me? She's like, you didn't hear what I said? Did you hear what I told you to do? And I was like, no. So sometimes the person throws, or they throw to us, or they communicate to us, but we don't receive it correctly. We can't hear you well. There's static on the phone. It did not compute. We do not understand, right? And then when time goes by, even husband or wife, parents and children, they're like the employer. You're like, why are you mad? Because there was a miscommunication and it broke down. So therefore, the line is not strong. And we can't move forward until we clear this up. We as a people in this community, if you look at what's happening right now, don't have those skill sets. You know what the skill set is? I'm about to turn on my phone and I'm about to go in. And then walk it back 5 paces. You know what I mean? Pop, 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 pop off on the person. And then be like, oops, I was wrong. Yeah. Quincy says she speaks to her son all day long. Yeah, sometimes I'll be like, my goodness, bruh, I'm over explaining. I think I'm overcompensating because I'll be over explaining like, look now, y'all know what y'all heard what I said. But those are just some of my thoughts. For those who just joined us, you're going to have to go back to the beginning for the TikToks conversation. It's really where it's at. Communication. Hopefully we learned. There's some videos we did a couple of months ago about communication and how to make it better. And I felt a kind of way today as communication was breaking down, because it's one thing when you notice information, and then it's another thing when you need to be applying it in the moment. But here comes the emotions, and you're trying to temper that emotional intelligence with your intellect, what you know to do. And so today it kind of found me in that space where I'm like, yo, bruh, okay, I'm done talking, right? Because again, the person is continuously trying to project a past narrative and trying to make it the current one, and they're not allowing for the conversation to grow, right? And so it's like either one or two things. Either the people are going to grow, or you have to leave people to whatever they need to be left to. You know what I mean? You fill in the blank right there. You have you have to tell children things repeatedly to emphasize its importance. They're in the stage where their personality. That's true. I agree. Laying down real life wisdom, actively perfecting your purpose. Since you kicking more knowledge than a comment. You know, this is real life. It's every day. It happens to us. There are things we know, and then there are things in the moment you forgot you knew it. And in the moment while it's happening, and when you remember it, you're struggling now because it's that old you and the new you that you're trying to become, right? And the persons or people may be trying to pull you back into that old mold. So it's a constant every day, every day, every day. He says John says someone teaches communication. Yeah, whatever communication information you can get. And if you're having problems in communication, first you have to identify what type of problems, who the person is with. It may be a power dynamic. It may be that the person doesn't respect you. You notice if somebody respects somebody, the communication move differently than if the person doesn't respect you, right? You can kind of tell the way they feel about you by the way they communicate with you. So they don't have to come out and say, I don't respect you. If they feel they need to yell, if they feel they need to be sarcastic, if they feel they need to undermine, that's a power issue. That's when you look at drama controls, right? All of these things is why I share on the Soul Center about just being educated about what you're dealing with. Because once you can, not necessarily people like psychoanalyze, no, once you can understand to a certain degree, oh, what type of plant is this? What type of snake is that? What type of animal is it? Is it harmful or not? Then you know how to interface. So it's important to know about you and your surroundings. And so if you are having a problem, let's say in a relationship, and it's a man to a woman or the woman to the man or friends, if you're having a problem in this space, then you have to assess, what about the way the person communicates with you makes you feel some type of way, right? What about this communication makes me get tight? We say stuff like, yo, I got heated. Yo, that person made me tight. Da 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 da. But what are we really saying? This person made me angry. Like, use your words, right? This person, this person is disrespectful, or this person is slighting me, or this person is, being sarcastic. All of these things are mechanisms. It could be the personality type of that person, or it can be them projecting it at you personally. So that needs to be differentiated. And then once you go from there, then you can really understand, because sometimes you may not get the same response with me that another person will get, because we all bring a different energy to the conversation. So to one person, so I'll tell y'all the complaint. It's like, Mona, you don't listen. And I'm saying to myself, well, that's not true. I listen all day long to a lot of people. You know what I mean? So but there are situations where if I get hot enough, then I'm not hearing nothing you say. So there is a partial truth to it. But because of the way the energy is coming at me, the quickest way for me to just block you out is that now I don't hear you, right? But I understand that about myself. So it's all, like I said, it's a process to continually break out of certain things. So something that one person may observe, another person may not see that aspect of you. And so it's just interesting to learn more and more about communication, how we effectively communicate, and how we resolve issues when problems may arise. Another issue that I was kind of dealing with is basically what some people call gaslighting, right? Where somebody may be doing a thing and they pretend they're not doing a thing. And then they have other people around them that they call flying monkeys, who will pretend as though the person in question is not doing that thing. So everybody around you is painting the picture like you're the only person that's imagining this thing. Therefore, you must be crazy. You feel me? And so depending on the type of personality you're dealing with, that type of situation is dangerous, because it's a level of mental abuse where you're pretending that what clearly is happening is not happening. This is what we see in the conscious community. What clearly was happening, people all around were pretending it wasn't happening. The flying monkeys around were pretending it wasn't happening until it became, and then you ostracize the person who's bringing it to our attention until it becomes undeniable. And now everybody wants to go back and be like, oh, wow, there was the signs. It was written on the wall. And it's like, no, it been there. But the person who brought it forward, you refuse to acknowledge them, because that would mean that you would have to make a change within yourself. It happens in groups. It happens in relationships and partnerships. It happens in a lot of spaces. And one of the things with us, I think Dr. Edwin Nichols talks about this, is the type of people we are, which is we like to collaborate according to what he found. You can check out his information. And because we're collaborative in nature, and it's funny he said that, because oftentimes we're like, yo, let's get together and collab. Because we're collaborative in nature, the minute that communication may break down, or the minute that something may arise, the whole collaboration breaks apart, because it has broken up in the way in which we don't feel it anymore. So once we don't feel it anymore, it's not about the whole, it's not about the end game, it's not about the goal. Because if it was about the goal, then you look beyond these little issues that may arise, and then you get to the end goal. But when the person is not feeling the other one anymore, or the other person feels disrespected, then you start something and then it falls apart, and then you start something and then it falls apart, and then you start something and then it falls apart. So check out Dr. Edwin Nichols. He goes more into detail about the different groups, Native Americans, Asians versus European. He breaks it down. And the reason why I keep referencing it, because that one opened up my mind. And I was like, you know what? He got some points. So that's just my thoughts on how we could in real time just improve the way in which we move through the earth. People gonna try to test you. You gonna try to test people. You know what I mean? And hopefully we can get above and beyond this whole thing. In this video, the mother, she was able to communicate more effectively than the first mother. She was able to let the son know, like, listen, I didn't appreciate what you said, and this is the reason why. Right? We come from people who couldn't communicate. Correct. This is what I'm saying, Queen T. We came from people who were chastised for communicating effectively, where your communication became illegal, where your effective communication became taboo, where you had to speak in coded language in order to communicate. Hence the name or the book Weevils in the Wheat. It was a saying. This is how we get to beyond not just Ebonics because you're speaking coming from another place, but in the way in which we have to break it down in such a way that if I throw the word, you already catch it and I didn't have to say the whole thing, because it was an adjustment. We had to adapt to our environment, which was hostile. So a lot of the reasons why there's hostility is because we were born and bred in a hostile environment. Yeah. This is why you see, and sometimes I'll be like, what are y'all doing? You might go to sleep and somebody's on a live stream, bruh. By the time morning come, they still talking. I'm like, what are y'all talking about so long over here? 8 hours? But y'all went to work on this joint? What time is it? 7:30. I gotta ride out. So when you look at communication as the one of the most important things that holds a group together and moves an agenda forward, and how certain people are silenced and only other people are allowed to talk. And if we look at that as one of the reasons why we cannot progress, then I think for me, we'll begin to understand at least what the problem is, or one of them anyway. And this is, to me, this minute somebody could communicate efficiently, then we're like, ooh, yeah, this person is the leader. They know how to talk. You understand? Why do you keep going to charismatic leaders who know how to speak? Because they know how to communicate. And people be like, oh, you know how to say something. I don't know how to say it. Let you go say it. As a matter of fact, we can see it, and biblically, what did Moses say? Let Aaron go. Because Moses is like, yo, he got a little bit of speech impediment. This is what some people derive from the story. So he was tell his brother Aaron, you come, you speak. Because you can communicate effectively. Okay? If you go to a place and you may be new to the place and somebody else knows the native language, you may be more comfortable letting them speak, because you don't want the person to misunderstand you. Nasha says, I have difficulty communicating with elder women and Black men. And that's interesting. You bring up a point. Who do we have issues communicating with? So in Nasha's case, she says elder women and Black men. I would say, okay, that's a great starting point. And then we say, okay, if you have issues communicating with elder women and Black men, where did this begin? Right? Because there's always an origin. Is it within your mother or your grandmother or your aunt, within your household? What were the first examples of an elder woman that you can remember? And how did you communicate with that person? And how did that person communicate with you? Right? And then when you get to see that, because this is where we learn or don't or unlearn, all right, we're directed or misdirected on what we can expect from elder women and Black men, right? And then so you say, okay, who was the first example of the Black man that now I now say to myself, I have issues with this type of person? What was that person like? What was their temperament like? What was my expectation? How did I feel in communication? Did they make me feel stupid? Did they make me feel dumb? Did they make me feel slow? Did they make me feel incompetent? What are the things, did they take their time in speaking to me? When we have issues in certain area, then we can break it down into smaller components and begin to understand, okay, this is where this root may be. This is where it may be coming from. Also, what is around you? For instance, I use myself for instance, and then I'm gonna go with 7:30. For instance, I grew up around male energy, if you can't tell. So for some women in my age group, I may be too aggressive, because even though I'm very ladylike, very ladily, right? I still have a little bit of topical leftovers, for lack of a better word, right, of the male dominated energetic space that I grew up in. Like for some people, this may be hype. And for me, it's not, because the levels that I grew accustomed to was like 10 times higher than this. It's highly animated, on the top of your voice. I'm not yelling, I'm just talking, So for me, when I come around, say, women of my own age group, not necessarily that I have issues communicating, that's not my most comfortable space, because some of the things I was not grown in a space that I could relate. So when I go into this space, it's me putting forth effort to do so. Like when I watch my daughters doing like girl talk, like my two little daughters, I'll be looking at them like it's just very foreign to me, just because it wasn't something that I was accustomed to. So I know where that's coming from, but I don't put it on them. I just like, that's just, they'll be like, okay, so what are you gonna wear? And oh, I think you should wear, this shoes right here, and then I'm gonna wear this. And I'm just looking at them like, what's all this talk about? Because I didn't have anybody to talk to about all of that stuff. Right. So I kind of, in the girly department, I had to be reserved onto myself. And when you get around a lot of women, it's sometimes for me, it's like overload. Right. So I say all that to say, to Nasha's thought process, the difficulty comes from oftentimes where we're coming from, and just identifying it, understanding it, and not projecting it on the new people will help us to move through that. So with that said, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I'm gonna roll this. The sun is dropping now. Thank you for coming through, Truthful Perspective. Like he said, you young. Yeah, I look young, though, not truthful. I still, they'd be like, oh, where's your mommy? I'm like, if y'all don't get out my face. So, John is asking, what do you talk to them about? Right. It's really depending on your culture. There's some cultures that you don't talk to. The elder women don't necessarily direct the younger women on what they should do, or there's a certain expectation. There's so many things that goes into it. And you really have to kind of just break it down, not only to just the overall dominant culture, but break it even further down to the things that happen in and around your space, and the thoughts and ideals that inform people's perspective about children. Like in some places, they think children don't have value. You know what I mean? Children don't look at you in your eye, or children can't express when they feel discomfort or whatever. I said to my children, if I'm talking to you, you look me in my eye. But in other cultures and in other spaces, that's disrespectful. But I want to teach them that if someone is talking to you, or you are talking to someone, then you make contact. You look at them. Because when I'm looking at you and you're going to misdirect me, or you're going to give me bad information, I want you to know that I see you. So I teach them to look at me. But in another culture, looking at your elder in their eye is disrespect. So it really depends. Right. So with that said, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. It's a lot, but we could just take it a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time. Everybody have a blessed night. like, subscribe, share the video. I know. It's not as titillating as, the beef, but that stuff wears out your adrenaline. It wears out your adrenal glands, man. It gives you too much stress. It's always hype. Anyway, everybody have a blessed day. Wait, let me see if I missed something. All right, everybody, we'll talk soon.